She went to rehab twice. The second time, I had her admitted against her will, and she resented me for it. I told her, no, this really is the right thing. I got your letter today, and we're thinking of visiting you tonight in the contest. Are you truly happy with what you're doing? Carol Burnett seemed to have affection for nearly everyone she worked alongside, yet there was one co-star who crossed a boundary she could never forgive. In the 7th season of her hit show, that person's behavior soured. They openly humiliated guest stars in front of the entire cast. When Carol stepped in to put an end to it, things became physical. What followed stunned everyone present. This co-star had been a part of her show for years, but their betrayal cut her deeply. The truth about their identity would shock many. Carol Burnett entered the world on April 26, 1933. In a deteriorating hospital in San Antonio. Her birth certificate did not even have an address listed. Her parents were already consumed by alcoholism. By the age of 4, both of them were drinking daily. Her mother's anger often erupted into violence, forcing Carol to hide under beds to escape the shouting. Neighbors brought food when her parents wouldn't. In hindsight, Carol described her early years as survival, not childhood. She carried with her a constant sense of loneliness. Statistically, children from such homes rarely break free, but Carol did. Her parents' marriage was short-lived. Her father left when she was just 2 years old. By the time she was 6, the divorce was finalized, with the court citing drunkenness and neglect. Carol was present for some of the hearings, later recalling how it made her feel invisible. Her mother remained bitter, while her father moved to Los Angeles and drank even more heavily. Still, Carol developed a keen sense of observation. Years later, that skill helped her create characters that felt authentic on stage. After the divorce, Carol and her half-sister Chrissy were sent to live with their grandmother. They found themselves in a cramped, windowless room inside a dilapidated, Hollywood boarding house. Rent was $9 per week. The only bathtub was down the hall and shared with other residents. Mice scurried across the floor at night. Their only income came from her grandmother's $30 a month Social Security checks. Carol crafted toys from broken furniture and read discarded books. She attended free radio show tapings just for moments of joy. In 1941, 7% of children in Los Angeles County were considered neglected. Carol could have easily been among them. At 8 years old, she created an imaginary twin sister named Karen, who had curly blonde hair and perfect dimples. Carol would run out the front door, change clothes behind the building, and return as Karen. She maintained the act for almost 2 years, even inviting Karen to a birthday party once. A concerned neighbor wrote to her grandmother, suggesting she needed help, but for Carol, this was her first experiment with improvisation. She didn't just make up stories, she performed them. By the age of 9, she was practicing her Tarzan yell on the rooftop. She copied the jungle call from old films, shouting until neighbors came running, sometimes even attracting the police. She never stopped. Over time, her voice grew stronger, her lungs more powerful. Years later, when fans called out Tarzan during her shows, she could deliver the yell instantly. What began as an escape became her signature. Survival meant finding resourceful ways to get by. Her grandmother had a peculiar habit at the movies. After the film ended, she would quietly take toilet paper from the restroom and stuff it into her purse because they couldn't afford to buy their own. Carol would later laugh about it, though at the time, it wasn't amusing, it was necessary. Movies themselves became more than entertainment. They were her school. For a dime, she could watch a double feature, studying the actors, the pacing, the scene transitions, and the audience reactions. These lessons would shape her comedic timing years later. She even spoofed Gone with the Wind on her show, drawing directly from those childhood experiences. Back in their small kitchen, music brought brief peace. Her grandmother played piano, and sometimes her mother strummed a ukulele. They sang songs, like You Are My Sunshine. In those moments, poverty didn't matter. Carol learned to harmonize around that table, which gave her the confidence to sing in front of others, a spark that later fueled the musical sketches. She became known for one memory stayed with her forever. When she told her mother she wanted to be an actress, her mother replied, "You can always write, no matter what you look like." Carol remembered the exact words and thought, God, that hurt. In that moment, she realized her own mother didn't believe in her looks. Rather than break her, it motivated her. She built a career proving that talent outweighed beauty, giving a voice to those who didn't fit conventional molds. By the early 1950s, her father was barely clinging to life. Alcohol had taken nearly everything. In 1954, Carol left for New York to pursue her dream. Not long afterward, her father died at age 47, his liver failing. She said he was never cruel, only lost. As her own life was beginning, his had ended. That same year, Carol was a junior at UCLA, unsure of her path. She was preparing for her final theater exam when her professor unexpectedly canceled it. Instead of a written test, he asked her and a few classmates to perform skits at a party for faculty members. For Carol, who had been stressed about money and doubting her future in acting, this seemed like a strange twist. But that night changed everything. She improvised a comedy sketch on the spot, and the professor's laughter was genuine, not just polite. For the first time, she saw authority figures respond to her humor. What she didn't know was that someone in the audience had been watching her closely. Afterward, in a moment, she later laughed about she began quietly slipping cookies into her purse not out of greed, but hunger, hoping to take them to her grandmother. Just then, an older man in a suit approached. She froze, thinking he might scold her. Instead, he praised her performance and struck up a conversation. That awkward cookie moment became the key to a door she didn't even know existed. The man was a wealthy shipbuilder from Loyola, and he offered Carol and her friend Dawn Soroyan a $1,000 loan, each with no interest, no strings, except for 3 conditions. It must be repaid within 5 years. His identity must remain secret forever, and if they succeeded, they must help other young performers in the same way. Adjusted for today's money, the gift was worth nearly $12,000. For 2 broke students, it was life-changing. Carol accepted immediately. There was no contract, just a handshake. She repaid him exactly 5 years later, never revealed his name, and later gave back to struggling artists through scholarships and quiet donations. That one encounter created a ripple effect through her entire career. With the money, she and Dawn made a bold move. They dropped out of UCLA and took a train to New York in 1954. At the time, women weren't expected to abandon school for show business. They spent the loan on rent and auditions, living cheaply. The struggle lasted for years, but in 1959, Carol got her breakthrough role as Princess Winifred in Once Upon a Mattress. The off-Broadway musical's popularity brought it to Broadway, where Carol's fearless, funny, and heartfelt performance earned her a Tony nomination. She stayed with the show for all 470 performances and later brought the role to television. That same year on the exact due date she repaid the $1,000 loan. The man accepted the money, smiled, and disappeared again. Carol honored the other parts of the deal too, helping others without public credit. In 1950, she joined The Gary Moore Show, filmed at CBS Studio 50, later the Ed Sullivan Theater. At just 26, she stood out among seasoned comedy and music stars. Her cleaning lady character became a favorite, showing her range. The show ran until 1962, during which Carol honed the skills she'd later use on her own program. She also met producer Joe Hamilton, who became her husband and key collaborator. That year, she won her first Emmy for Outstanding Performance in a Variety or Musical Program, her first big recognition, and a signal that her comedic voice had found its place. By 2024, she would collect 7 Emmys out of 25 nominations, but that first one meant the most. Also, in 1962, she and Julie Andrews starred in the now legendary Julie and Carol at Carnegie Hall, airing in June. It drew more than 17 million viewers with its mix of music, parody, and sketch comedy. The chemistry between them was electric, defying network executives' doubts. It won 2 Emmys, one for the show and one for Carol, cementing her status as a top-tier entertainer. Carol married Dawn Soroyan on December 15, 1955. After meeting in college 3 years earlier. At the time, she was still struggling in New York as a hat-check girl, and Dawn was also trying to break into acting. Their marriage unfolded in cramped apartments under the weight of unpaid bills. In 1962, after the success of Carnegie Hall, their marriage ended, finalized on September 25, just as her career was accelerating. Only months later, on May 4, 1963, she married Joe Hamilton, who had produced the Carnegie Hall special. Hamilton had ended his previous marriage that same day in Mexico. Together, they had 3 daughters, Carrie born December 5, 1963, Jody, January 18, 1967, and Aaron August 14, 1968. The household also included Hamilton's 8 children from his prior marriage, making for a lively home of 11 kids, while Carol juggled scripts, costumes, and her public image as a calm, funny host. Her private life was filled with non-stop schedules, family chaos, and hidden struggles. In early 1965, she suffered a miscarriage at 9 weeks. Years later came her greatest heartbreak, Carrie's battle with addiction beginning at age 13, and her eventual passing in 2002 at age 38 from pneumonia caused by cancer. Joe Hamilton was not just her husband, he was the driving force behind The Carol Burnett Show, which premiered in 1967.